Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's been a minute since I've actually hopped on here in the flesh. My last few episodes, I guess it was January. That was my last live solo episode, which how crazy is it that we are in March? Honestly, I will always be humbled by time. If y'all are part of my newsletter, I started that as the March reflection. I was like, I think no matter how many lives I've lived, I think I will just always continue to be humbled and in awe of time. Something that exists and but doesn't exist, is a construct, but also just here. It's just fucking crazy. It's crazy. But I hope you've enjoyed the last few episodes. I have been sitting on those since last summer, and obviously I don't have to get into my whole story about what a fucking doozy last year was, but I'm just so happy that I finally released them and I finally did it. And now I'm here. If y'all have been following me on Instagram, then you've been kind of seeing there's just been a little bit more activity. I feel like after especially months of hermiting and going just deep within and figuring out, how I wanted to show up in this space and where I wanted this to go. I have a full-time job. There's just everything is different. Everything is different. And actually before this episode, I was standing outside and I was sunflowering, where, I just stand barefoot facing the sun with my eyes closed, chest out, neck out, just absorbing everything. And I was just thinking about where I was this time last year and how everything is so radically different. This was March, I think, was officially the start of things just starting to get really crunchy for me, and just being okay, if the way that I thought this was going to go, if it's not working out the way that I hoped it would and I thought it would, I'm gonna just have to start thinking of something new. I think I have to give myself 2 months. And then luckily tax return came in and bought me a little bit more time than that. That probably bought me an extra 2 months. And from there, it's kind of just been a wild, wild ride. And my winter season has been very reclusive in the same way, because now that I've kind of entered a very grounded and stable part of my life where, I am working at an establishment again. I work a 9 to 5. It feels really good. It feels really good. I have a tattoo. I have a different tattoo. I don't know if y'all ever saw my old BLC. I see it in my videos now and I'm like, wow, it looks so different. Anyway. Now I'll have to continue to do this side. Anyway, I'm a little all over the place. What I'm trying to say is this winter season, I really let it be winter. I didn't try to put too much pressure on myself, even though sometimes I did. And for the first time, I think since I started my business, I really didn't put any expectation on where it needed to go. I really just let it sit for months. And now, again, just the cyclical nature of time and seasons, I feel like I finally kind of have entered this next stage where things have just started to become more clear, meaning that the more I let it sit, the more I was actually able to settle, LOL. The more I was able to actually commune with the spirit of even my business and really ask myself really tough questions on what I wanted and how I wanted this to look and grow. And for those of you that are part of my newsletter, you read about, the shift that I'm going into. This shift being stepping away from one-on-one work and sessions and readings and really solely focusing on my writing and this part of me that really is excited and wants to be expressed. And so with this change, I've had to get really honest and real with myself because at first, even through my little rebrand that I'm going through, when I was talking with my web designer, I was like, hey, I think I still want to offer this and like have this live on my website. And she's like, okay, well, like, are you going to market it at all? Like, do we need to have like come up with like, different assets and like visuals and things like that? I'm like, no, I don't plan on marketing it. No, like maybe I'll talk about it on my podcast, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to market it. I'm not really going to sell it, but it's just going to live on my website. Then why am I like forcing this to be a thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, why am I going to put all this work and have me and this woman put in all this time to create something when in reality, do I actually have the time to do this? I have a full-time job. I'm writing a book. I have a podcast. I have a life. I have a partner. Like, I have a house to clean. What world can I actually give this offering, the attention that it needs in order to be anything, right? I don't have any resources to water it. So why do I feel so much pressure to water it? And it really came down to realizing that my ego still wanted to hold on to that aspect of my business because I felt like if I let it go, then what were these last 3 years for? Which I realize when you say it out loud is not true, right? Just because letting go of this one aspect of my business doesn't mean that everything that I've built and everything that I've done was for nothing. But for whatever reason, that's what it felt like, And I finally let myself grieve that and really let myself come to terms with like, well, this new project is taking a lot of me. And also about time this podcast airs, those of you that follow me on Instagram will know that I have a new podcast dedicated to creativity and reading with my book bestie, Christiana Salerno. So that's taking up a lot of my time. Reading's taking up a lot of my time. So how on earth, and then writing is taking up a lot of my time. How on earth am I going to be able to hold space for one-on-ones? I'm not. I'm not. And so for the first time, I'm like, okay, well, I still love astrology and human design. I still love talking about it. I still want this to be a part of my brand, right? I don't want to just go like full send author, right? This is a part of me. And even the book that I'm writing is still very spirit heavy. It's always going to be a part of me and it's always going to be a part of who I am. And I think it's always going to be part of my writing in general, right? I think I'm always going to write this like magical universe, even if it's contemporary romance, right? So where does that leave me? And for the first time, I was like, wait, it was just so natural. I was like, wait, instead of having one-on-one sessions, why don't I just create? Because I already have a newsletter and I haven't really been using newsletters in a way that, people have newsletters, right? Like I've always used my newsletter as like updates, of course, and selling things and podcast release updates, but it hasn't been like you can join my newsletter and get this monthly forecast. And so on Sunday, literally this past weekend, I was like, okay, this is the time. This is what I'm doing. And it was the most fun I've ever had creating a newsletter ever. Most of the time I am dreading it. I literally am like, oh my God, I have to create this newsletter. Oh my God, what am I going to say? It was easy. It was seamless. It was so much fun. And it is the newsletter I have gotten the most like feedback on I have ever received in terms of like, Meg, I loved it. It was so amazing. I loved how you explained everything. This was so fun. It felt like so much flavor and it really just brought me back to my roots. For my friends that watch the things that I do, I used to host Astrolosis, which is like this little group of me and my friends, and we'd gather once a month and I'd go over the current astrological season and go over how the different signs like worked with our current season that we're in. What a fucking concept. Like, I don't know. I'm like, what journey am I on that now I'm like back to like where I was in the beginning, but in a whole new, like, grown, like so much growth, so much flavor, so much like just a completely different energy. And it feels so good. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, I feel like I'm exactly where I want to be. Like, I am so excited. Like, I am over 60,000 words into my writing project. At the end of August, this was simply just like a whim. I'll just try writing. I've literally been in the biggest creative rut in my whole life. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. I have no job, no income. I have no money. Let's just try this out. I went from that to then having it take form in this whole new way, finding then a job that is giving me the resources that I can feel grounded and renewed. Because let me tell you, I think the biggest fucking sham of this online coaching fucking business is that we glorify leaving the 9 to 5 and making our creative endeavors full time. And you cannot manifest shit. You cannot manifest anything if you are living in survival mode. You just can't. And that was like, I think the biggest shift I've had over the summer of like, I actually need this because this is going to help me create the life that I actually am craving. Oh my God, who knew? And I know other people have their own journeys. So I'm really just talking from like a me perspective and realizing it's like, oh yeah, like starting my own business. I don't actually do that. I don't want to do that. Having my own podcast. I love having a partner. Like, I love being able to have someone else to just create with and get feedback on and like just create something together. Like, I missed it. I missed being a part of a team. I missed being a part of something. And I like didn't know that until I left. And so, my line 3 really puts me through the ringer, but like I needed to go through all those things. And now my life feels so full and it's like so full of amazing things. Like I'm creating this thing with Chris, and which I realize not everyone in this space might follow me in that way, but it's just where I'm heading. It's just the space that feels the best. And that leaves me with that this is going to be the last episode of this podcast. Which is nuts. I really just want to be honest with like where I'm going, and I only have the capacity. I'm a projector. I only have the capacity for, so much. And so I'm pouring all of myself into my writing and into my book podcast with Chris, and we're going to see where that takes us. And so and of course on this other podcast, yes, so they're going to be episodes, it's bi-weekly. So there'll be episodes that are purely dedicated to recaps. But there are also going to be buffer episodes in between where I still am going to talk about Pisces season, and we're going to talk about being creative and just like finding our flow again. Chris and I have both been through very similar journeys of kind of just like losing ourselves for a little, and honestly just how books have like really helped heal us and inspire us again. And so I'll be talking a lot about my creative process, and I'll still have fun games where I'm guessing there's like our characters' star signs, and I'll still bring that element with me into this new podcast, but I'm just not going to have a dedicated solo podcast to my individual work anymore because it's all shifting. And so the best place to keep up with me and to still get some of that human design, astrology tools and knowledge is to subscribe to my newsletter. It's like the number one place where all of that's going to live. And following me on Instagram and Threads. I love Threads. Following me in those 3 places. And then, of course, if you love to read and maybe you just like haven't wanted to pick up a book in a while, or maybe you just haven't known where you wanted to start, like come read with us on All Too Well Read. We're about to dive into Fourth Wing. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I kind of want to come on and just kind of share where I'm at and where I'm going. And I'm really excited. Feels really good. You know, as I said in my newsletter, this pivot finally doesn't feel like a pivot that is rooted in like survival and just like needing to like figure something out. It truly feels like such a natural evolution to like where my journey has been taking me, you know, and I'm very ready and excited to kind of embark on this next chapter of my life. Anyway, I say this just kind of like as I gave my newsletter folks a closing of a chapter and honoring that, I wanted to give this space again another closing of a chapter. Of course, my YouTube will still be live, and maybe there will be times where I do like post solo things if I feel the call to, but I'm just no longer not going to have the podcast of Living Unbound and like dedicate like long form content to this space, which is so weird. It's weird, but I can only trust my authority. You know, it's been feeling like this for a while. You know, for example, I've been sitting on episodes for like over 6 months, 8 months. I haven't wanted to record. So like, let's take these signs for what they are and realize the death and the ending that this is. And I could, you know, old Megan, ooh, sometimes my ring just like finds its way to other fingers, especially this one. Like this one always finds itself other places. But old Megan probably would have like held on real tight to this. I mean, even like my one-on-one sessions that I was like, oh yeah, I'm still going to do that. Of course. It's like, wait, Meg, hold up. I have to just be honest with where my energy really wants to go and where it wants to flow and where it wants to grow. Right. And so old Megan, I think, would have like held on to this screaming, but now I have the space and the awareness and I think just like the acceptance enough with it that this is just a whole new era of my life. And it's okay to let things go and it's okay to end and it's okay to change. I mean, I've started like 1,000 million bajillion podcasts. How many times have I went through like renamed this thing? Like it's like so ridiculous at this point, right? But I had to go through all those things. I'm sorry. Like I think like us as humans, like just don't give ourselves enough credit and like forgiveness and just like trying something to try. I was actually just talking to Jason about this. It was like, I think the biggest area in our life, sometimes we just get so stuck in trying to get clear and trying to figure things out and like waiting for clarity. And sometimes we do need that space. Hell, I've taken this space. I've taken that space. But at the same time, you also still need to take action on what you can in the moment so you can actually go through the process of things getting clear, right? I had to change my name 1,000 fucking times and I had to have this session and that session and that session. So I know what's working and what's not. I had to take a step back, right? And finally, instead of like then just getting lost and throwing things at the wall, just getting really honest and letting my emotional authority go through a few different waves, riding that wave until I continue to come to the same answer over and over and over again. And so I'm really thankful for everyone that has followed me in this space. I'm really grateful for everyone that has supported me in any way, whether that is just simply following me on here, following me on Instagram, like coming into group spaces with me and purchasing sessions with me. Like you have no idea how much each and every one of you have like touched me. Can't thank you enough because it's literally like such a gift to be able to like share this work with other people and just be able to connect with you and see all of you in such like this beautiful way. Like reading your astrology chart is like, I think my number one love language. And then getting into just then even the healing work and like seeing some of my clients like holding space for some deep ass shit and moving through that together. Like I am so grateful that I have had humans that have trusted me with guiding them, and I will never, ever, ever take that for granted. I'm like so grateful that that got to be like my life full time for 3 years. And I also want to remind even myself that just because your life is no longer dedicated to a certain bit of magic that you have does not mean that magic goes away. Now that magic is being used in all new ways. And yeah, if I want to whip out my cards and have a session with a friend that came to me and is like, hey, Meg, I need you to hold space and see me for a moment. You bet your ass I'm sitting my booty down and we're channeling light language and we're having a moment. That stuff just doesn't go away. We're just using it in a different way. Instead of channeling messages from my guides into my journal, I'm just channeling a story into words and how that story has healed me, and hoping that these words can help heal you. Maybe I'm not channeling light language directly into your aura, but I truly do believe that the words that I am writing and the energy that is moving through me is still pouring onto the page. We're just using the magic in a different way. And so for anyone that is also kind of going through pivots and understanding and trying to like grapple with the terms of like, but this is like magic and why isn't this working? Because it is magic and it is working. Sometimes like life is leading you in a different way. I literally remember, oh my God, even before I had vision boards, I knew this was like, gosh, back in like 2020, I think. I remember I was sitting down with this psychic who was like channeling for me. And it's funny because I asked her a question. I was like, am I going to write a book? Because I feel like I'm going to write a book. And she's like, absolutely. And I always thought that book was going to be like super like memoir-y. So Leo of me. Super like much of like a memoir, self-help healing, right? And then literally over the summer in my fuck it moment, I was like, instead of staring at this like book someday on my vision board, I'm like, I'm just going to start writing the book now. And it's not a memoir because I'm nowhere near being on the other side of whatever this healing journey is for me. I feel like I'm still very much in it. So we're not old enough to have a memoir yet, honestly. And as one should, I'm only 31. I feel like that's something that happens like in my crone era. We're still figuring it out. As I also want to remind everyone else too, like, y'all, we're still figuring it out. We low-key know nothing. And that's just how I feel when it came to the memoir. I'm like, I still know absolutely nothing. So I can't write that. But what can I write? I can write a little bit of fiction, a little laughing at my life with what I thought was going to happen for me and have it just blow up on the page and watch this fictional character guide herself into finding herself again. And that's the story that was written. And now I'm almost done. I decided to take a dream and just decide to say fuck it, because even though the original thought in the dream was going to be so different, and now it's like the best part of my day. Now I'm like, I can't believe I wasn't doing this. And I was. And now I have writing in so many different ways, right? I'm writing fiction, but also like now I get to pour like fun writing into my newsletter every month. And I get to use fun gifts. And I get to like be sassy and, you know, a little spicy and a little fun. And I still get to talk about the things that I love to talk about, right? I'm just doing it all in different ways. And so this doesn't need to be a long episode, but I just wanted to say thank you. And I would love for you all to continue to support me, obviously, but also no pressure. I realize like not everyone wants to like talk about dragons all day and like fairies and stuff. We do read more than just romantasy. We'll also throw some like contemporary romance in there, throw some other fiction stuff in there, but we are in our fantasy era. Honestly, just love like the healing and the strength that comes from these books. You know, if you want to stay in touch, definitely follow me on my newsletter, because my newsletter, you're going to get like all the things. You're going to get the monthly astrology forecasts where I break down the current astrological season. So for March, I broke down Pisces and how to best work with Pisces season. Any like free guides I'll be releasing will also come through the podcast. The podcast will also come through the newsletter. So you'll get monthly forecasts, you'll get writing updates, you'll get like little like tips and tricks of like how to like be creative in each season that we're in, and tips to even look at your own astrology and human design and how to kind of tap into your creative genius in that way, and podcast updates for All Too Well Read. So newsletter is like the best place for you to stay in touch with all of my things. Also follow me on Instagram. I am like not as active there compared to Threads. I'm a little bit more active, but you'll still get like, I'll be more active now that I'm doing things with All Too Well Read. So follow me on Instagram at Living Unbound. Subscribe to my newsletter. How many times am I going to say that? And if you want to join me on All Too Well Read, Chris and I would love to have you. Talking about books is so fun, you guys. You have no idea. Talking about books like really saved my life, honestly, this last year, and having Chris to talk about books with has like totally changed my whole life. And so if you just like need some friends and just kind of want to lose yourself because the world right now is like a pretty scary place, let's just like call it like we see it, right? Like being here like isn't the easiest place to be. So if you want to like lose yourself somewhere else, you know, we are in Pisces season. It's the perfect time to escape and kind of lose yourself in another world. So come follow us on All Too Well Read. We would love to have you. It's going to be really fun. And thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for loving me. I love each and every one of you. Truly, I'm not just saying that. I am really, really grateful for this entire journey we've been on. And though it's a farewell in this official, like, solo podcast era space, it's not a goodbye forever, because I'm still around, just in a different way. I hope you all have the most amazing rest of your week and amazing life, and we'll talk soon. I love you very, very much. Thank you.